Bounty Hunters. Life on the blockchain.
Welcome to Bounty Hunters. We're back with another episode. We are sponsored by ImmuneFi, the biggest bug bounty platform in Web3. If you're a white hat, this is where you earn real money and make crypto safer. Don't know where you want to start? Hit the feeling lucky button and let the hunt choose you. We're also sponsored by Rare Skills, rareskills.io/Riptide. Get 10% off a bootcamp. Go learn Uniswap v3, go learn ZK math. Learn it all, go find bugs and make millions. And we are also sponsored by getrecon.xyz/Riptide. If you launch a fuzzing engagement with the Chads at GetRecon, you will get $5,000 off with code Riptide. So check it out. Introduce our guest today is Josselin Feist, the creator of Slither and X Trail of Bits. He was there 8 years. Good day, sir. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me. Looking forward for the discussion.
Very, very excited to have you on. I would say, kind of laid low in the Twitter sphere until recently, and I'm just saying this because I took more notice of you recently. I was like, oh yeah, who's this guy? Because you were behind, the shield of Trail of Bits for so long, and now you're out there on your own.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I was never, too active on Twitter like in the past year. I'm trying to be a bit more active, but yeah, I'm still, I think, on the low side.
And so what happened? Why did you decide to leave?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and a few people have asked me that. I've been at 12 bits for 8 years, and in our industry, it's like 2 lifetimes. So I just, thought at some point I needed to do something different. I'm still in a really good relationship with, everyone at 12 bits. I still talk to a lot of engineers there, but I just think after 8 years in the same place, I just needed, a change.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you're doing this private security reviews. I saw on your page, and then you also joined Perimeter, as you said, the lead fuzzer over there, which is kind of cool. By the way, getrecon.xyz fuzzing/Riptide. I just want to throw that in there. I don't know if you've heard of Alex and
Oh yeah,
Recon.
of course.
Okay,
I've been discussing, with Alex for like a few years now, probably.
Okay, cool. No, I think more the better in the field of fuzzing and hybrid and symbolic execution. I think anything we could do to kind of find the bugs is a good thing.
Exactly.
So on your end, I mean, you have, I look at you and I'm like, man, I started with one of my first tools was Slither, and I'm like in the crib and you're nursing me with the bottle. You're like, here you go. Here's your findings, young researcher. And, I thought that was so cool. I said, wow, and think back then, I mean, when you first developed it and when that was kind of one of the few static analysis tools to look at, how cool it was to just be able to run through the code and find potential flaws, like from creation of it to where it is now to kind of what we're doing with fuzzing. How do you think? What's your view on like how this has evolved? Do you think what we have now is adequate? I'm curious to get your viewpoint, given so many tools out here now from when you first started.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. So to put things in perspective, when I started to develop Slither, it was definitely really cool to see the outcome. But at the same time, I'm coming from like traditional, cybersecurity, and in the traditional like Web2 world, we already have like a lot of really, really good tools. We have, really good static analyzer. We have really good fuzzer. We have like a lot of kind of like things you can use. And when, I started within the blockchain space, there was basically nothing, right? So on the one side, it was cool to see kind of like the impact of the tool, but on the other side, it was like, yeah, there's still a lot to be done just to get to a place where we are even close to what we can have in traditional security. So it has definitely evolved, over the past, 5, 6, 7 years. We are in a better place now in terms of tooling, but it's still far from what we have in traditional software security. Like, like the further are good, like, Echina, Medusa, Foundry, they are doing really well. But if you compare to what you can have in traditional cybersecurity, the maturity of the tooling is just not there. Even Slither, I'm really happy where Slither is, but in comparison to what we could have with more, a couple of years, more time and more effort, I think there's still like a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, I geeked out on your webpage, and like before you were doing the Web 2 bugs, and I looked at some of your submissions, and the feedback is just like, yeah, fixed, thanks. From and the Web3 space is like bounty, multi-million-dollar bounties hanging is just fixed, thanks. And that was really the expectation with a lot of, many projects. You just contribute, hey, I found a bug, yeah, okay, but you didn't have millions and billions on the line.
It's, if you think about that, because I think what you're referring is some of the bug I've reported in non-blockchain kind of project. If you think about that, like 20 years ago, when you were finding something somewhere, you basically could report it, but if you were reporting it, you would have issue with the law and you could get into trouble just because you were like genuinely reporting a bug to a protocol. There were many cases where people were like, oh, okay, I found a way to, get access to your bank account and do A, B, C.
Right.
And like the reaction 20 years ago would have been, oh, okay, this guy is a bad actor. We are going to, send law enforcement against that person. So over, I think like the past 15 years, it did improve. Like the bug bounty kind of space within Web 2 has, evolved, and now we're in a better place. But yeah, for many years, like reporting, you would get a T-shirt, maybe, like a thanks. You will be, happy. And 15 years later, when you do that in Web 3, you get like a really good bounty. So it definitely does improve.
Yeah, because guys, I think naturally, with a good moral compass, they want to report. They want to help.
Yeah.
I think my viewpoint on human society is that we like to contribute and we like to help each other, and we have a positive outlook. And then you have the small subset, which is nefarious, and they're going to do bad. But by default, I think what you're saying is this wasn't rewarded. This wasn't recognized. There was just hackers. It wasn't black hat, white hat. It was, they're all bad.
Yeah.
You're doing anything. What are you probing? It's just the crime of curiosity, man. No. It puts you in jail. Yeah, it's flipped significantly, I think, for the better. And I think these bounty platforms for Web3 have been such a great driver of that as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And, you have a crazy body of work here. I particularly liked your post. I didn't know it was from you until I browsed your page, because I'd read it before, the breaking Aave upgradability, where you have the delegate call self-destruct pattern that kind of no one saw except you. And you have a quote in the beginning. You're just like, even though we weren't engaged on the job, I just opened up the contracts and just browsed and just quickly took a look and found this devastating bug. And 4 audit firms, I think, didn't catch it, is what you said. And isn't that the case? Like and as this moves on to kind of what I'm trying to get at here, but we have this human review problem where it still exists today. This was in 2020, you wrote this, it's 2025 now. And it's the same thing. Now we have LLMs. We have, I think, better fuzzing tools. We have, better. Well, now we're getting concolic execution and symbolic execution. Better tools there, and I think LLMs are improving dramatically, and we're working on something with that too. But you still have this human problem where you miss things. What is your opinion on this? And I also want to, not to give you too many things, but you posted something by Gustavo on the new Echidna capabilities around concolic execution. Could you talk a bit on that and kind of where we're at now compared to 5 years ago?
So I might take the first question, and then we can move to
Sure.
codec execution. So I think related to like the human problem you're mentioning, I think a lot of people and a lot of teams see security as something external to them. Like they are going to hire like a security provider, they are going to do like a contest, bug bounty, and then kind of externalize security. And I think that's kind of like the root of the problem. The real, in my opinion, like the real long-term solution is for security to be embedded in the development lifecycle. To have like maybe like external review along the path, and maybe like through multiple cycles of the development. But it's really about enabling the developer to build safer code, because that's really what all of this is about. There will always be an expert. There will always be kind of like a new risk, and the best weapon against that is really to enable developer to avoid making the mistake in the first place. So it's really about having a good design, having a good testing strategy, having kind of like a good process on how you develop the software, rather than always kind of like thinking and seeing security as a last step before deployment, because that doesn't work as we know.
Oh, absolutely. And I wonder if we're going backwards with the vibe coding LLMs. Like, how can you internalize security? You're internalizing it to Claude, and
Yeah.
I don't think the devs. I think what you're saying is right. Like the devs that prioritize that, you see that, and these are the top tier guys that build ground up with security in mind, and the other guys just say, oh, well, let's kick it over to Trail Bits, and they'll figure out everything.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for LLM, it's definitely going to be tricky, because everyone is going to start using, LLM to write code, but the quality of the code which is kind of delivered is not there as of today. And I actually don't recommend anyone to write production Solidity code with LLM. It's really good if you want to write, tests, if you want to do like, this type of things, but to write like the business logic through LLM, most likely, you are going to have a bug, and it's going to be subtle, and you're not going to notice it until it's too late. So anyone who is deploying a smart contract which is going to handle fund should not have a single line of code written by LLM, in my opinion.
I would agree, and I would say the principal, like I use it to write POCs all the
Yeah.
time, and you still have to double check those because they'll just make a crazy assertion and or a crazy prank call. But how can you write code, the production code with LLMs, and put it out there, even if you get the test running, whatever, and your contracts are out there, you don't understand it, you don't know what it wrote. Like just what you said, you don't know the design choices and trade-offs that it made.
Exactly, and there's a lot of subtlety. Like a lot of small and minor things within your code base might have an impact, down the path. So you need to control and understand every line of code that you are pushing out there. And if you delegate that to LLM, it's not going to happen. And people are lazy. If you receive some code which is written by LLM, you are going to check it quickly, but you are not going to check it like in depth and really try to understand what is written and what are the assumptions. So I think as a if I was like a team lead in a DeFi protocol, or this type of things, I would have as a strict guideline: no one can deploy code which was written by LLM. Use LLM to write documentation, use LLM to write tests, but do not use LLM to write production code for smart contract.
Absolutely agree. Do you think how many projects do you think are doing this though?
It's hard to tell.
That's the problem.
I
It is
think,
hard to tell.
yeah, I think the team that are mature, they know about that, I think, and they probably don't use LLM. The team that are a bit more, younger, or they have like a short time to market, type of strategy, they are probably not going to do that, and they are probably going to rely on LLM. So yeah, bad things are going to happen for this team.
Yeah, like I was curious, what do you see as like, when I was reading that what you posted about concurrent execution, which is they call it hybrid fuzzing, or when you do symbolic execution and fuzzing. Do you see this like maybe plus LLM reviews as maybe kind of a holy grail type thing to stopping most bugs?
It is going to help. It is not going to be bulletproof. So one of the things I've also tried to push to my client and to the industry is this notion of invariant-driven development, where really when you write smart contract, what you want to know, from even before writing a single line of code, is the invariant. So the invariant are things about the protocol that should remain true. A good example is in Uniswap, where you have the K invariant, and when you're doing a swap at the end, K, should not change unless you have like some fee accounting there. But from the moment kind of like the invariant of the protocol, you can design the code base around them. You can design your testing strategy around them, and then you can use additional tools like fuzzing, symbolic execution, formal method to verify the invariant. So they are, fuzzing, symbolic execution, concurrent execution, they are going to be a piece in the puzzle to improve like the security. But I will even go further and say it's really about the invariant, from the first place, and it's really about knowing what your code base is supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. And so, what if certain invariants are missed by the protocol team? Like, as an auditor, do you kind of look for situations like that? When, like, in your role as a fuzzer and your prior role, are you going in there and maybe looking at their test suite and seeing, hey, what did you miss? And then compare that with what you know about the code to
Yeah,
kind of come up with different pathways?
yeah, exactly. Like when I'm doing like an invariant, engagement, I'm going to do exactly what you say. So part of the invariant engagement is going to be to write like the fuzzing harness and like all the setup for the code base, which can be complex for some code base. And part of it is also to discuss with the engineer to understand the invariant, to understand, the area to cover, to understand what they have done so far and how to help them in the long term. So there's definitely like a lot of kind of like exploration of invariant. So yeah.
Mm. And when you were at Trailbiz, what could you explain their audit model? Because the only one that I've seen clear transparency about is Hexens, because they put it on their audit reports, and where they basically have two teams. It looks like they have one guy, one set of teams review, and then they send it to the other team. So they do a double review of each
Mm-hmm.
report. And I think that sounds in theory like a great model. How did you guys do it over there?
Yeah, it's much more collaborative. So we, when I was at Trail of Beach, we were not setting strict guideline into, okay, this is how you do a review. We, trusted the engineer to have like the right process by themselves. But basically, we foster collaboration. We foster like internal discussion with the client also, because at the end of the day, the client have way more understanding that you would ever have. Like if you review a code base for 4 weeks and they've been working on it for 2 years, they definitely have a lot of insight that you should try to extract. So it was less about competition and internal competition to know who is going to find the most bug, but really more about fostering a collaboration among the engineer so that they can build up on each other understanding.
Did you always have a review, no matter what, is a final review by another team?
No, it was not like multiple team in kind of in different like segregation. It was really like everyone together.
Okay. And I'm not at all trying to flex on the great Jocelyn at all, but this is a follow-up question I have, because I think your technical expertise is far beyond mine. And I just, I threw some luck into here, but can we talk about the Arbitrum Nitro review from 2022, which you led?
Um, yeah, it might. It was a long time ago. We can try.
Nothing crazy about it, right? I mean, it's a 150 page review.
Mm-hmm.
You guys went all in, and uh, you did that in March, and I found that bug in September in Arbitrum, and the root cause of this bug was due to this post upgrade init function where they wiped 3 slots clean, and then they reinitialized 2, and they left the third blank.
Okay.
And they told me, and they had multiple auditors review. I don't know if it was just you. They told me, "Oh, we put that in there because of the feedback from one of our security partners as an optimization." And I didn't see anything in the review about it. I've never got an answer for it. Who suggested it? And I was just curious if you knew who was behind it.
I mean, to be honest, from a review 3 years ago, I don't remember much. Usually, we don't tend to recommend optimization
Mm-hmm.
because optimization are risky. because exactly what you will say. I would
Yeah.
like for optimization recommendation. I basically have two modes. Either the optimization is clearly having no security impact. Like for example, if you read twice a state variable and there is no external call, there's nothing, and you can be sure like you can just cache it in a local variable. Sure, you can do it. But for optimization that are more like low level, like you can use assembly or you can skip some other things. I would be surprised if it was something we recommended. Let's say from like a report from 3 years ago. It's difficult to remember.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah,
Not at all, Flex. Just curious.
Especially if it's not in the report, I would be surprised if it was coming from us.
Yeah. And also, so like you put on your page that you're doing security reviews, and you specifically didn't use the word audit. Why is that?
So I've been using security review for many years. I know there is some kind of like Twitter fight about audit versus security review. Security review does make more sense, but I might use also audit, from time to time because that's what people are expecting. To be honest, I don't think the audit versus security review debate is that important. To me, it reflects more like a kind of like a internal bubble within the Web3 security space where people might debate about things that don't matter that much. Like if you go to a client and if you go like to the developer and like that community, they probably don't care if we call it an audit or security review, even if security review is kind of like more truth in a straight sense.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious how you were categorizing it, because I use that terminology as something I do, which is like people come to me and I say, hey, wait until all your auditors review, and then you could also call it like a targeted bounty hunt. But I say security review because I'm not going to give you gas optimizations. I'm not giving you low mediums. Like I'm only giving you things that will break the protocol. Just criticals, highs, just stuff like. So that's how I define it. That's why I was curious how you were defining it.
So you are doing really more like time bound, bug bounty type of things.
Type of thing, because like say you get all your reviews and then your bug bounty is $1 million. Well, hey, just let me work on it first, and then if I find a critical, look, you're saving $1 million, and I'm charging way less than that to do a targeted review.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So yeah.
So the way I see it is that a security review can take many forms and it depends on the scope. So we can end up having 10 different names for the services and for the products, but I think just having one name makes it a bit easier. And what I mean by that is that when you do a security review, depending on the context and the scope, you might adapt. For example, if you review something which is still in development and some components are not fully fleshed, some components are still moving, and the developer knows that okay, this is going to be changing. During the review, you're not going to focus on that, and you are going to maybe focus on something different. If the developer is more interested in design because it's halfway through the development, you might focus more on long-term recommendation. While if it's 2 weeks to deploy the protocol, you might shift the focus into exactly what you say and more high and critical. But you are still doing, in my mind, security review. It's really more you adapt based on the need of the client in that sense.
Right. No, good point. And what was I going to ask you? Oh yeah, something I have to know. Like, what is in your tool suite, your toolkit? Like you posted something recently. Like, how are you using LLMs as a military term, as a force multiplier in your kind of day-to-day work?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. I use it probably for everything now.
You admitted it.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I use Cursor when I explore a code base to kind of chat with Cursor to get some insight and draw some graph and things like that. It's a really good assistant for some other things. When I need to write a proof of concept, I'm also going to delegate part of it, through an LLM. It's not perfect, but it's going to scaffold like the test and this type of thing. So just saving time. When I'm building tooling now, I'm also using LLM, and I'm delegating part of the implementation to the LLM, and this has saved me also a lot of time. I used to spend a day to write like a custom static analyzer for a specific target. Now I can do it in like 2 hours with an LLM. So it's pretty good.
I know it's there's so many ways to save time. It's so hard not to rely on it, but then you have to don't get lazy.
Yeah.
Right. That's it.
I think that's a like a real important piece. Like, don't get lazy in the sense that you should not delegate like your reasoning to the LLM. Like, you should still drive like, what's important. You should still drive like the reasoning. You cannot just rely on an LLM, for example, to find bugs, but you can rely on the LLM to help you to get like an understanding, quicker and so on.
Yeah, if you can put it over the target, it could be pretty good. But if just I'll find all the bugs, it doesn't work that great. But if you can put it around, your 25-meter target there,
Yeah,
it could be, and especially with what was I using, Grok 4, where it has full web access, full research. My God, search whole repos. My God, what a time saver! If you're not using that for your bug hunting, you're crazy. Even though it messes up sometimes, it's like, my God, what a time saver! Highly recommend.
yeah. Have you tried Deep Wiki?
What is it? Deep Wiki?
Yeah, it's from I think Cognito. It's basically like a code exploration for public GitHub, where you can just browse any public GitHub, and they have indexes, everything. They created like a summary and graph, and you can just query any code base like remotely. So if you do bug bounty and if you explore like, oh, okay, like this new project on GitHub, Deep Wiki is really, really good to give you like a first insight.
I'm going to check that out. Deep Wiki. GitHub search, I've used that a lot, and I cannot believe you still cannot do a regex on GitHub search. Like, I feel like it's artificially neutered. You're probably laughing because you built some secret backend API tool where you're regexing left and right, and you're laughing at my fledgling behavior.
No, I mean, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about like the backend of GitHub, and if you allow regex, that's a lot of computing power which is needed. Like, running regular expression can take some processing power if you allow any type of regular expression. So it might not be that easy to do that.
Yeah, there's got to be some reason.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to bring it up because it's such an old school tool like the Ethereum verified contract search. Like when you really want to get lazy, my God, it's the worst search ever. But it'll do it a pinch. Yeah, are you familiar with Lightchaser?
Yeah, I never use it, but I'm familiar like of the name basically.
So I did an episode with Chase the Light, and he has built his tool where he has, what does he call them? Not agents, but detectors.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he's amassed this list of, I think, over 1,000 detectors. And he says it's all hand coded, coded by hand. And he does it all himself. Maybe he works with one other person, but he expressed very high confidence in his tool and the improvements in his tool in version 4 on where he's been able to consistently find high severity vulnerabilities just using static analysis. I was curious on your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I totally believe it. I mean, I've found a lot of bugs using Slither, so I'm not surprised if people building Lightchaser, have similar outcome. There are a lot of like simple, not necessarily simple, but some form of pattern which are really good for static analysis, and you can find like bug at scale. I think the real challenge is not to find bug, and it's the same with LLM. Like, it's not to find bug, but it's to find bug with a good ratio over the false alarm and the false positive. Because finding bug is the easy part. Removing false positive is the difficulty here.
Yes.
Like, even with Slither, like, some of the detector, there are some design choice where we could say, okay, we are going to cover more ground and report more bug, or we are going to be okay to miss some of the bug because we are going to reduce the ratio between false positive and true positive. So there is like a lot of design, direction and decision that you can make.
I feel like someone is out there building the ultimate tool where they're combining like a Lightchaser with the right AI agents with fuzzing, where it's a kind of one click, hey, look at this code base. And it's
Yeah.
just cranking on AI credits and it combines everything at once, fuzzing everything. And I mean, it's probably already in development, but I feel like that's kind of the ultimate auto tool that we need in this space.
Yeah, from what I can tell, talking to a bunch of people, everyone is going in that direction. I think today, most of the large teams are trying to build that capacity, and a lot of individual or small group or like 2 or 3 people are also trying to build something like that. I don't know if you follow. But there was like the AI XCC result a couple of months ago, which was a kind of a competition to find bug automatically using traditional program analysis and LLM in like C and Java, funded by the DARPA. And it's exactly what you described for like traditional analysis and traditional like software. So definitely everyone is going in that direction.
And my thoughts on that are that's great, but I also know the blockchain, and it's a place, when you were in DeFi summer, where protocols developed by protocols, right, developed by a 16-year-old in India can amass 50 million, and this guy just picked up his Solidity course online, and anyone can deploy things and attract capital, and so we can have all the tools necessary, but in my eyes, we have the human element that is always vulnerable, not just in this case, but as far as just pushing out code and permissionlessly. So, what do we do, Joseph?
Yeah.
What do we do here?
That's what I was saying at the beginning. Like the solution is not on the security researcher side. The solution is really on helping the developer to get better, because that's how, like if everyone that start to learn Solidity, that start to do all of that, get some flavor of, okay, you have to think about security, you have to have like all this mindset, and if we educate kind of like more developer toward that direction, that's how we mature as an industry. That's how we improve in the long term.
Yeah, in some ways, I think our space is getting better, and then a lot of ways is getting worse as far as
It's much better than like 5 years ago, let's say.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely more awareness. Like a lot of people at least know how to read a smart contract and they know what's going on. But I mean, look now, the amount of drainers and scammers and front end, like any vector, when you have this much money involved, any vector is being exploited now, compared way more now, I would say, than compared to back then.
Yeah, like I agree. Like I think a lot of attackers moved away from smart contract and started to find any entry points to attack and steal money which are not smart contract related. So that's definitely like something we have seen. And for like end user, like obviously like all the scammers, like all like the phishing and everything, they are making a killing for themselves. So
and Solidity extensions or VS Code extensions, like
yeah,
it's like we're walking through a minefield every day. And I remember, past audit reports that you always look through, and you guys would do it, everyone would do it, but it was always like, hey, admin centralization risk. And everyone would write it off. Oh, it's not really a finding. And then we're seeing like, hey, really the wrench attack, the digital wrench attack is working. Offer them a job and then compromise their system.
yeah. But that's why like
It's
it's also important in the long term that like large teams do like threat modeling and this type of activity for them to understand what are the risk, what are like the boundary within their protocol, because there is so many ways to steal money from a protocol that are not related to issue with a smart contract.
Did you ever get into that at all? Like, the physical side of it, or exploring those kind of avenues? Because in our space, it's laughable. You'll see whole teams, the whole multi-sig shows up at a conference. It's so laughable. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I've provided advice, but I'd never performed like a physical pen test or this type of things. It's less of a thing in Web3, just because everyone is remote. Also, like if you go like in more traditional company, they have an office, they have like server, they have like all of that, they have like database somewhere. But it's a different setup that most of the blockchain team are remote and don't have even like a real office.
Yeah. I think the only I don't know. There's just an exploit all the time, but we have the hardware wallets, which was such an improvement off just writing down your keys. I think that's really our like iron gate holding a lot of these attacks at bay, like these drainers. Like, thankfully, you can do something that I wouldn't say 100% guarantees your funds not to be lost, but it's a very high wall to climb.
Yeah, you need like air gap machine also, and you need a lot of different things, because even if you have like a hardware wallet, like even when you need to sign a transaction, it's really difficult to understand what's going on with the transaction. So that's why you probably want to have like an air gap machine that you just use to sign transaction if you manage any significant amount of money, right? So there are a couple of like strategies that you can apply. It depends on how much funds we are talking about, how many people are within like the process, what's kind of like the context of your company. But yeah, there are definitely like things to improve.
Yeah, and I don't know your age. You're my age, something around there. But I don't know if it's a thing with the younger groups, because most of my listeners are 18 to 24, and I've worked with some of them and I've seen how they work, and they're very the opposites of what I would do. Right, like I'm very I don't trust the cloud. I don't trust my file names have underscores in them, like things like that. But they're very happy to put things in Google Docs. Like, everything's in the cloud. They're cool with it. They're running 10 different browser plugins that they're somehow cool with that. And it's just a lot of things where I grew up kind of paranoid on the computer, where if the file's not on my computer, then I don't trust it. And like, so we have all these things and all these kind of guideposts that are already out there. But do you feel like the younger generation, they just, I guess a different mindset, they don't care as much, or don't know about it as much?
I'm not sure it's a generational thing. It might be, but I'm not sure. And the reason for that is that a lot of people that are not security oriented, above 30, 40, 50, they do the same. So I think it's more about like having kind of like a security mindset and having like a kind of an education around security that change your perspective on things, like being a bit more paranoia, being a bit more, okay, how to trust something, what you can trust. And I think it comes more with kind of like your exposure to security.
Yeah. I guess I would agree. True. Yeah. Because I could talk to people that are my age that would do some really dumb shit. That's true.
I think
I think you.
one thing I've noticed for a lot of like younger people in the Web3 space, several or large majority came to security through Solidity. They came to security, through smart contract security. They never did any like web security or traditional application security or this type of things. So they might not have like the traditional security background that you might have from people from other community. And because of that, they might not have this education about security, because all they know, all they have experiment is around smart contract security, which is kind of like a subset of what you can do. So I think like, and I've seen that, with a lot of people, where you have to kind of like help them to understand, okay, there's like all these things that can happen, there's like all these possible things, but it comes from exposure to like security risk.
That's a good point. Yeah, they view security just through the Web3.
Yeah.
The focus. They're not thinking Tempest attack on my on my network cables there. Yeah, and the Web 2 thing is just like, the crowd now has grown up with the browser as the brains of the computer too, which is totally different than what I'm used to. And I think that's affected a lot too, because the browser is now, to me, I mean, it's critical infrastructure on my computer. So those extensions I've scrutinized highly, and they're only used absolutely when necessary, and it just opens up so many things that I don't think people consider.
Yeah. Or even, having like if you're an individual, having a laptop for work and a laptop for other things is a practice that probably most people don't even follow if they don't work at a company. So they end up, mixing personal action with, whatever they're using for work, which definitely increase the risk.
Yeah.
I think
Definitely
it comes
not good.
also from, in a way, I've noticed a lot of people, started the journey through bug contests and, going through like individual and competition. When you do that, you might be missing a bit of the mentoring that you get at a company in terms of like traditional security, where you need to have something on your laptop that uh, add like additional guarantee. You need like to have like some specific access control. You have a lot of kind of like hygiene that you get when you work in a security company that if you don't have again exposure to it, it's difficult to get by yourself.
Very good point. Yeah, you do kind of absorb things that are just around you
Exactly.
working for a company. That's true. No, good point. I want to get to some questions, if that's all right with you, from the Discord.
Go ahead.
And you could choose to answer or decline, whatever. I don't think they're too tough. This one's kind of interesting. So K42 says, if you were making Slither from scratch today, with all the wisdom and knowledge of today, but you only had 2 weeks to do it, what would you focus on for optimal results?
Oh, 2 weeks.
Vibe code.
Yeah, if it's a 2 week things, I would focus on a few type of vulnerability that I want to discover and focus all the design, all the analysis toward finding one or two specific vulnerability. Yeah, for
What would
two
those
weeks.
be?
I mean, I don't know. Let's say you want to have the best read-only reentrancy detector in the world, right? And you have 2 weeks to do that. Then you can focus on, okay, how to detect the pattern, how to make sure you remove false positive, what type of analysis do you need to go through that. So it will be really about like what's the end result and how to work backward toward that.
Mm-hmm. I love that class. Read-only reentrancy. Do you remember who actually found that? I can't remember who did the write-up.
So who coined the term? I think it was Chain Security, or it was
I
OpenZeppelin.
think you're right. I think it was chain security.
Yeah, but
I'm going to say that.
people were finding this type of bug before, right? But they did coin the term and created like more awareness toward it.
You're saying Curve, that wasn't the first one that was found on?
I'm saying people were finding like read-only reentrancy before without calling that read-only reentrancy.
Okay. No, that's a great one. I love that. I think that's the dream of a bug hunter, is to find his own class of bug.
Yeah.
Ideally, he should get it named after himself, like the Riptide Read-Only Reentrancy. That's like the wall of nerd fame. Put me up on there. Okay, the next one is from your hardcore competitor and colleague, Alex. So he says, what is your setup for fuzzing? When do you fuzz, and when do you just do manual review?
Okay, that's a good question. It depends on the context, because if I am on a fuzzing engagement, then I'm going to do end-to-end fuzzing. I'm going to create like a complex harness. I'm going to discuss with the client to find the invariant and all of that. So that's kind of like a heavy process. Now, when I do traditional security review, and my goal is not to focus on fuzzing, the way I use fuzzing is as a targeted approach. For example, if I know there is some weird arithmetic going on, and I notice, okay, I have a feeling that this rounding is not right. I have a feeling like this multiplication, this division, something is wrong. I am going to use fuzzing in that direction, and I'm going to mock the contract. I'm going to create kind of a model of the arithmetic in a separate contract, and I will do targeted fuzzing based on the model of the contract. And I do that so that I can abstract all the harness, I can abstract all the kind of like configuration and really focus on the part of the code that I want to fuzz. So during a manual review, that's really how I do it usually.
What would you say would be like some of those red flags where you're like, yes, this is what I'm gonna fuzz?
Like arithmetics is really where I fuzz the most. Like when I see no explicit rounding direction, over the code base, or there is like always like some it's always rounding up or something like that. Like when I see complex arithmetic, it's usually a place where I'm going to use a fuzzer. And the reason for that is that even if I find the bug manually, I need like a confirmation, because like arithmetic can be tricky.
Mm-hmm. And what about, do you do hybrid fuzzing as well?
By hybrid fuzzing, you mean things like symbolic execution and combination?
Correct. Yes.
Not directly. I do use from time to time Almos when I need like some level of confidence in what I'm doing. So I'm going to use Echidna, Medusa as a first step to fuzz, and then for some things where the fuzzer doesn't give me like information I want, I might switch to symbolic execution. However, that doesn't work all the time, and it depends on the complexity of the operation, because if it's too complex, like the solver is not going to be able to handle it.
Okay. And that was his other question too. Do you use formal verification tools? Which ones and when?
Yeah, so I use Almost from time to time, not on a kind of like a continuous basis, but when there is a specific need, I'm going to use it.
Okay. And like when you do some of your fuzzing, do you have like a specific, how do you come up with the amount of runs that you're going to do? And do you have dedicated hardware for that? Like how, because I've seen, I think it was Enigma Dark or one of these people, someone posted something where they had things running for a couple days on some fuzz tests.
Yeah, so if it's for like an invariant development kind of engagement and I need to fuzz for like multiple weeks, I might deploy something in the cloud, for example. But if I do it during a manual review, that's more something I'm going to run for like over the night on my personal machine. So it depends on what I'm trying to do. Usually for targeted fuzzing, it's going to run for like a couple of hours at max, because I'm not targeting like a large piece of code, so it's either it's going to find or it's not going to find. For more complex engagement, it's going to depend.
Okay. And what is your personal machine? Just out of curiosity, what are you running?
It's a desktop machine, so it's like a
What OS? What OS are you running?
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Yeah. I have also Mac, so it depends what I'm doing.
I got rugged on the Mac. I'll tell you what. Like
what happened?
I've gone I was running Ubuntu for many years, and I was, you have your normal frustrations when it upgrades your network driver, and you got to roll it back, this and that, right? And I eventually saw this stupid marketing, which they got me on, which was for this the Mac M3, and I got an M3 Max. And it was like, oh, it's so fast, this and that. And I saw, I've used Macs in the past. It is sleek. I buy one. And it's just so disappointing. A Mac is great. Like the interface is great. And then it just does things so badly. Like the security updates all the time. There's always these holes in there. And then it just doesn't perform that the way you'd expect such high-end hardware to perform. So I think I was rugged big time. I think if I had this hardware and I was running Ubuntu on it, it'd be way better.
I mean, I do have a Mac too, so depend on the need of my switch. But yeah,
it's just disappointing. I think Steve Jobs is rolling in his grave. Anyway, okay. So Alex has some other ones. He says, which improvements are still missing in security tooling from your perspective?
Okay, that's a recurring joke, but we are still missing a debugger. We have been. I remember back in like 2017, 18, like people were like, "Oh, we are finally going to have a good debugger," and it's many years later, and we don't have a good debugger.
I have one for you. Have you heard of Rumblefish?
No.
I'm going to send this over. I met this guy at an ETH event, and he wrote this on-chain debugger.
Okay.
And he wants feedback. I'll send it to you offline, man. But the thing is crazy. It's really cool. So maybe we're partway there.
Oh, yeah. That would be perfect, like if you have a good one.
Yeah, sure. Okay, last question. He says also, and which security changes would you want to see to smart contracts and processes that projects go through?
In processes,
in the context of improvements missing in security tooling.
Oh, for security tooling. I think it goes back to like the invariant-driven developments, because once you know your invariant, you can use different tool and different techniques to verify them. But it's less about the tool; it's really more about the processes. So the things I wish to see more across developer is thinking about invariants. And in fairness, I have seen an increase of that over the past like 2 years. I see more developer coming with, when you start a review, they're like, okay, this is like 10 invariants we know about and type of things. So it is improving and it is going in that direction, but there is still a lot of room for improvement.
All right, cool. Joseph, the final boss question, and I didn't prepare you. I don't prepare anyone for it. So I do an alpha drop where I drop some sort of alpha for the bug hunters that listen out there. and it could be a code specific thing, it could be a bug pattern, it could be general life advice, it could be anything you like. So I'd ask you for an alpha drop. I'll give you a minute to think about it while I drop some alpha. So this is on, and it'll be kind of vague. I'm going to keep it vague because I like to. So this is on 4246 vaults, ERC 4246, and it's about vault wrappers. So just check before the vault wrappers kind of introduce a vulnerability, depending on how they're coded up. That could just check the shares and check the share checks on those wrappers before things make their way and the logic flows to the vault, because you may run into some interesting findings there, because some certain things aren't considered because it's kind of out of the spec when someone writes a wrapper that talks to one of these vaults. Mr. Josselin, do you have any alpha for the listeners?
Okay, one thing I would recommend like people doing bug bounty to look for are the hook architecture from like Uniswap, Balancer, and all the protocols that follow it, because I'm kind of expecting that people building hooks on top of like major protocol might not necessarily have like a mature security process, and probably like the integration, some of the access control, some of the data validation they do through the hooks is probably not that great. So if you want to hunt for that, there's probably some chance to find something.
Very good. I like it. Well, cool. Hey, we're at about an hour. Thank you for coming on. It's been a real pleasure and an honor to get your expertise on the podcast. And everyone, I think, will enjoy this episode. So thank you, Joseph, for coming on. And everyone, we will see you next time on the blockchain.